Time to smile and make podcasts. Welcome. This is the Wheelhouse Podcast from the Wheelhouse Bunker. I'm Joel Spreadborough. You're Kate Bates.
And you're in very good spirits today, it seems, Joel Spreadborough.
Well, it's been raining a lot in, well, I won't say where the bunker is, but in the secret location where the bunker is, it has been raining Wheelhouse flyers left, right and centre, and they're beautiful and I love them.
What colour do we think it is? Do we think our team colour, Wheelhouse team colour, is like a watermelon?
I'm so glad you said watermelon because I'm terrible with colours. I was going to say like an orangey... Ready not thing? I don't know.
I think if we put a green edge around the edge of our postcards, it would look very much like a watermelon.
Okay.
And I think that's the quickest we've managed to really go off topic in any podcast.
I just noticed it. I was fanning myself with it. And I was like, for those that are listening on, beautiful flyers can be found pretty much anywhere you look around the streets of anonymous location where we record for our bunker. But big episode coming up, Kate Bates. So we've got... I guess it's one of those things where you think it's drawing to an end. The season's coming to a close. It's all passing us by, but it's actually really starting to heat up. And there's going to be so much to talk about. We've got track worlds, of course. We've got controversial sponsorships. We've got world records falling. We've got relegations. We've got shit slinging, which I'm looking forward to talking about as well from the recently retired esports and Bucks parties. There is so much to cover.
Yes. Well, I mean, not least that I've learnt this week that Australians call it a Bucks party, but other people call it a stag night, I think.
Yep.
Anyway, I mean, it's the event that happens before one gets married for the fellas.
I went on one last weekend, and all I can say to you is that I'm so glad that the majority of my mates are now married and that I don't have to.
And you survived.
Barely. I'm here. No, I'm here. I also want to tell you I've been working on my folding.
Oh, yes. Your Nick folding.
Yep. Still can't do it. You're going to have to show me.
I will show you. I actually had a good chat to Ali at Champs this week about the folding.
Yeah.
Now, it was in real life. I know it's odd to have a meeting in real life these days, but we did. And I was showing her with my hands how I did it, and she was also not aware of this Nick folding technique.
I can't believe that surprises you. You're like, oh, look, it's a simple 68-step process that you can do so easily. It's not.
Well,
it's difficult.
We'll break it down. Not like Vanilla Ice kind of break it down, but, like just step-by-step tutorial.
Little bit Vanilla Ice. Let's go to France to start off the Wheelhouse podcast. So I wanted to start here because... the group that I've affectionately come to know as the Gang Hook, the Aussie Gang Hook, continued to dazzle toward the end of the track. So, an honourable mention to the Aussie sprinters once again, and one of the great photos. I'll let you take it up from here.
So after their tremendous victory for the Rainbows in the team sprint, the Aussie male sprint team just had an incredible week. Matty Glatzer finishing with the bronze medal in the individual sprint and Matty Richardson taking home the silver. Now, I did a bit of a Google look for a beautiful smiling podium photo because I thought that would be really lovely to pop on our video element of our podcast, but also on our social media. Alas, that's not what I found.
No.
And I scrolled pages and pages, and what I found instead was a photo, which I've taken the liberty to put on the screen in our studio, Joel, just to dazzle your eyeballs, of Matty Richardson. He kind of looks like...
I did after the Bucks party, to be fair.
He looks like he needs medical help because he's lying on the floor with his legs being held up by one of the team carers, a fan on him. I'm pretty confident to say that he's vomited at some point. Not because there's no video or photo evidence of that, but I know the effort that these guys go to.
Yeah.
But it made me laugh because I thought it's so glamorous. You think you got second at the World Championships and these beautiful smiling photos and biting the medal.
Yeah.
But this is like a reality show where actually this is what happens.
Bringing down the fourth wall in every sense.
Yes.
But
I was always a little bit cranky and perturbed at my podium photos, Joel, because it's like the biggest moment of your career and I look like a beetroot. Like my face is so red and my eyes are barely open from the effort I've expended. It's the least glamorous thing you'll ever see.
Well, yeah. Now, did you ever have one like this?
I did not have one like this. I definitely collapsed post-race and my legs would not have been very useful for walking.
Okay.
But nobody got a photo.
No
of
one
it.
snapped it.
No, different era.
Well done to the Aussies, though. Were you surprised
Yeah.
to see Richo outpoint the Glazer in the match sprint?
I think that there must be a very particular strategy going on to develop these athletes. Remembering Matty Richardson was a gymnast and he was talent ID'd across. So he's got a very different background history skill set, but clearly a very explosive athlete. And we're going to try and get Lynn Munro on, the coach. I've spoken about her before because she's an absolute legend in what she's been able to do. But I'm not going to presuppose exactly what it is that they're doing to turn the corner. I think that we'll talk to Lynn, we'll get it from her, and we'll figure out, how they're managing to do this, because it's a new era for them, and I'm pumped. The whole track team, I think, did a really good job, even if they were just shy of the podium. And, for the first time, I think, in quite a number of cycles, we can look toward the next Olympic cycle, toward Paris 2024, actually feeling, and it'll be on that same velodrome, actually feeling pretty good about it.
Great dress rehearsal
Yes.
for Paddy 2024. Gold,
is.
silver, bronze, everywhere you look.
Yes.
And Len Munro, yet another exclusive for the Wheelhouse podcast.
Yes.
Just saying, no pressure. I know it hasn't been
Yes.
confirmed yet, but
on the talent wrangler.
just throwing it out there. Let's move on. Stay at the event. Let's change countries now, because who even is Ganna? Fillipo Ganna. What is going on?
He's
How
going
is
to go
it
down
possible?
in history.
What?
Well, so the last time we chatted about this, Joel, he'd just broken the hour record. He'd scooted on over to Paris, and the Italians hadn't won the team's pursuit. And we were like, doesn't really matter. But then he came out and he didn't just win the individual pursuit.
No.
He smashed it.
Yeah.
So of all of the incredible performances that happened on the boards in Paris, I think this has got to be historically the standout one. Broke the 4-minute barrier. I was in the Velodrome in Sydney in 2000 when the German team's pursuit team for the first time ever broke that 4-minute barrier. Fast forward to now, an individual is breaking it.
Yeah.
It's only been done once before. That was by Ashton Lambie, and that was
at altitude.
It was at altitude, so sea level.
Yeah.
Sub 4 minutes.
So that's the first one done at sea level.
Yeah.
By a guy who 6 days earlier broke the hour record. Like, didn't just break it.
He's
smashed it to smithereens.
He's just cool, isn't he? He's
What
just
an
a cool
effort.
dude.
Yeah, what an extraordinary effort. Like, this is
love
all
him.
time Hall of Fame, beyond, like, one of the greats.
It is, and he's copped a little bit of criticism over the last sort of 12 to 18 months that he hasn't necessarily stepped up like people expected him to on the road. And I think it's just another example of people, thinking and assuming where his career is going and what his goals may be when they've clearly misfired.
For
I
those,
think he's hitting the goals.
It's amazing. For those not as across the difference, I guess, sea level altitude, how much of a big deal is it to do it?
Well, the biggest difference is that altitude, the air is thinner.
Yep.
And because so much of cycling, especially when you're heading, upwards of 60k an hour, because to cover 4 kilometres in 4 minutes, you have to go over 60k an hour because it's from a standing start, remember? So you kind of lose 250 metres of that just getting up to speed.
Yep.
But so much of it is aerodynamics and wind resistance. And if the air is thinner, automatically it takes that away.
Yeah,
So it is just the gold standard to break records is to go to altitude to do it.
I notice that when I'm climbing the hills in my suburb. There's 123 metres of elevation, and you get up there. But geez, I'm going quick.
Oh, no. Look, I have some days up the stairs where I think I need to get into the aero tub.
Really noticing that thin oxygen on the Wheelhouse podcast. My name's
Yes.
Joel Spreadborough. Kate Bates is here now. Para Track Worlds. Let's stay with the Track Worlds. The Para Track Worlds not too far away.
No, they are underway now. The Aussies have sent an awesome team over there. We've got 5 incumbent world champions, but we're really kind of looking to the women here, Joel.
Yep.
Our female para athletes are just next level. Emily Petricola, Amanda Reed, Paige Greco. These are the ladies we're looking for to really carry the flag for the Aussies on the Velodrome. Again, the Paralympics will be on this track too, so it's really cool. it's the first time that it's happened in my memory where the para track has followed immediately after the able-bodied track on the same velodrome. Usually the para athletes don't get the chance to recon in the same way.
Yep.
It's so cool. And so track cycling fever is kind of at a peak right at the moment.
That's great. And it's how it should be.
Yeah, I think we can get some records too, because some of their performances, even at Commonwealth Games, the para athletes, the best moments, the best I remember, they are just... It's just incredible.
Yep.
They're superheroes. And anybody who can remember the advertising campaign for the 2012
100%,
London Games, superhumans. And, I know that my kids, one of their favourite athletes is Ellie Cole, who's a swimmer, not least because one of the girls is named Ellie.
Yes, yes.
But, of course, Ellie Cole is an amputee, and they don't look at her as anything but an absolute warrior.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I love that we've got so many, especially female para-athletes who are just smashing barriers.
I love it. It's so good to see.
You can tell I'm a bit of a fan.
A little bit of a fan, but no, it's good because, I like to promise statues.
Yes.
So statues for all the girls.
Yes.
Statue for Richardson and Glaze. I've already given him a statue. But another one over in Perth for Matty Richardson. Yeah. I love to see Aussie success, records tumbling. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, I think we could get like Paige, Amanda and Emily together in a group with a thumbs up for a...
We'll get them on the show too. No pressure on
Indeed.
you, but I'll promise to listeners now at some stage they'll be on the Wheelhouse podcast. Now, let's move along. I want to talk about esports. Now, this is an area I'm very excited about. You're very excited about. Now, there's lots of big news this week. There's a little bit of news that's a bit close to home for us here in the Wheelhouse bunker. We'll get to that in a sec. Firstly, the World Champs in February, the Continental Qualifiers are just around the corner.
Yes, they have changed. Will be the third year that we've had Esports World Championships, and they've changed format completely. They've tried to gamify it a little bit more. So instead of having just an out-and-out race, what they're doing now is they're having 3 different styles of race back to back, where you need to qualify through each race. So they'll have 100 starters on the line for both the men and the women in race 1. But then each race, people will get eliminated. Oh, it's so cool. Yeah. And for the final race, they're still confirming, but I think there's only 20 in the final race.
Okay.
So, I mean, Aussies have an incredible history at Esports Worlds. We've been so successful on the podium. I mean, we've got Sarah Gigante, Freddie Ovett, Freddie who just rode the Gravel Worlds, great diversity. And of course, Jay Vine. Who can forget Jay Vine and his heroics at the Vuelta? And he's a very dedicated esports athlete.
The benchmark, the shining example of success when it comes to that talent ID.
Gold standard.
On that, Zwift Academy finalists have been announced. So good news for Cooper Sayers, Lucas Hoffman, both in the top 6 and a chance at an Alpecin contract. That's a little bit exciting.
Well, it's the top 5. It was announced that they were finalists. We've had a lot of Aussies represent men and women in Zwift Academy, but it's essentially emerged as the gold standard of talent ID and scouting. So you think about, how do they know that these athletes will be good, and so much data is involved now, and of course with Zwift and the way that they run Zwift Academy, there's just so much involved. But it's awesome to see the Aussies represented again, and 2 out of 5, I like our odds of getting Jay Vine, an Aussie teammate over at Alpecin. No Aussies on the women's side this year, but we do have an athlete, and I say we because I really like this lady. Her name's Liz Van Houweling.
Oh, your mate.
And I don't even know if I'd recognised her if I walked directly into her, to be honest. But I've commentated on her for years on Community League on Zwift. And Community League is not Premier League, so it's not the top racing division. It's where a lot of the talent comes through, and you see them progress from essentially B grade to A grade and learn how to race. And it's really cool because at the beginning of a lot of seasons, there's some questionable tactics, and you see the athletes with these huge numbers, but they just don't really know how to race. Yep. And often by the end of the season, you've literally before your eyes seen them grow into the sport and into racing. And Liz Van Houweling, I've watched that progression. I'm so pumped to see her in that top 5. And yeah, it's awesome. It just goes to show how cool the community leagues are and what they do just not only on a social community level, because everybody loves that part of it, but also just in developing talent.
Yeah,
It's really
100%.
cool. I love it.
It's big for Australia.
It
I
is.
did mention that it's big for the wheelhouse as well in the world of
Yes.
esports. So, a bit of an announcement to make here. Now, new title for you. You've got more titles than the State Library.
I do. Lucky we don't do the business card thing anymore. No,
What's
this week it was confirmed that I am the Oz Cycling National Team Coordinator for esports. So thank you, Joel. I am very, very excited to be working with the team at Oz Cycling and to help develop and manage our esport athletes. So as you mentioned, Continental Qualifiers are around the corner. That's the first thing we're looking at. And then the expression of interest for athletes to apply for the Team for World Championships is going out as well. That's out today. So yeah, it's really exciting time in the esports world, and I'm so thrilled to be part of it. It's something I'm really passionate about.
I can tell.
So
I can
cool.
tell, and I think it's outstanding. Congratulations to you. I feel
Thank
like
you.
you've won a game show. It's honestly, it's so exciting. The music, the streamers are going. So congratulations to Kate Bates. She'll be walking away with.
Listen, it's less glamorous when World Championships are, in the time zone we're in Brisbane at about 3 a.m. Less glamorous when I'm sitting there with my headphones on, trying to give them motivational things through the
Details.
microphone.
Yeah,
There'll be a lot of coffee ingested at 2 a.m. to make sure.
You can take a couple of flyers and wave them to keep yourself awake. Now, there's been some sad news this week of a widely respected, one of the last old school newspaper men, a sport journo of great repute, has passed away. A valet to Peter Kogoi.
Yes, Peter Kogoi. It's very sad to hear of his passing. He was only 70 years of age. He was at the Australian for over 40 years, and he was kind of like the oldest, greatest, original newshound journo. Just a really top bloke. He used to ring me, and he had this very distinctive voice, and he'd say, "G'day, Kate, it's Peter Kogoi." And I'd always laugh because it could have been nobody else on the phone. And he'd say, "We've got to talk about cycling. I've got some questions. But first, how's your dad?"
Oh.
Every single time. And I just loved it. He was just a really kind man who chased a story, very honest in his reporting. Just, wonderful. Very sad to say goodbye to him. But such is life, we're learning, Joel.
A big loss, extraordinary legacy, and how good that you've got those lovely memories, because you wouldn't be the only athlete that had the old "g'day, mate."
No, across all sports, he will be really missed, and he had a very big impact on cycling in particular. So a lot of cyclists and cycling journos who will be sad to say goodbye.
Absolutely, gone too soon. R.I.P. Peter Kogoi, one of the great journos now on the Wheelhouse podcast. Not an episode goes by where we don't speculate wildly about the future, and wildly inaccurately, I should say, about the future of the one, the only Manx missile, Mark Cavendish. Now, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again, Kate Bates, because another week, another discussion. How do I even pitch this?
Look, he's annoying me now, Joel. I'll pitch it like
I'm
that.
trying to say, can you stop it?
We have been talking for not weeks, months about where is he going? What is his next move? Will he retire? Is he dragging this out? He has alluded to in his own social media that he's not retiring. Last week, there was a little bit of a prank. We got totally calved because
we did get calved.
There was an announcement that he was going to B&B Hotels, KTM. We got fooled. It was a prank account. But then he put out some little videos where he quite cheekily said the word hotels in it, as in and he said, "I'm not done yet. I've got big things planned for next year." So the retirement thing's off the table. But then he's been very closely linked this week, all of the reports suggesting he has in fact signed for B&B Hotels. But then they've come out and said, no. I don't know. Is it the greatest PR stunt in the world where week after week everybody's talking not just about Cav but about B&B Hotels? I don't know. Was
So
Scott
B&B
McGrory
Hotels.
right? Is
Oh,
that
Scott,
the question?
hello to Scott McGrory, and I threw him under the bus saying he led us down that path. Turns out he's the Yoda of everything because he might have been right.
We just don't know. I mean, there's a really good lead-out man from UAE,
Yep.
Maximiliano Ricciezzo. He's been linked to B&B Hotels. In fact, Brisbane's own Nick Schultz has been linked to B&B Hotels. So it could be an incredible team, and then he'd be able to go to the tour and get his record, get his 35th stage.
Gets a wildcard entry.
And then, thanks for coming, retire on the Champs-Élysées. I mean, there's some poetry in this.
This is extremely forensic because you've identified the word hotel, big things next year. He's that record is in his missile sights.
It's got to be.
That'll
There's
get
a
him on the
documentary
bike.
in that.
What would you call it?
I don't know, but they put out a documentary this week about Fillipo Ganna's hour record, Joel.
Yeah, what do they call it?
1 hour.
Oh, my goodness.
Crack creative team behind that one.
1 hour. That's literally what it was called, 1 hour.
1 hour, yep. We'll have to work on Cav's documentary name. We'll have to get Merksy involved in that.
Well, I'd like it if he told us where he was going. It'd make it a lot easier.
Start. I agree.
Jeez, Cav. All right, now let's begin at the end on the Wheelhouse podcast, if you don't mind, because some big name retirements. Now, I want to look at two, obviously, Alejandro Valverde and the Shark of Messina. Now, not only does the sport lose two athletes, Vincenzo Nibali going also means that it loses one of the great nicknames.
The Shark.
Very, very sad. Very, very sad. Now, let's talk about Vincenzo first. So, a great Italian. He's I think is it 7 that's won all GTs.
The Triple Crown.
Extremely select group.
He is,
of athletes there.
He's a tremendous athlete. He wasn't the most versatile in terms of he could do everything, but when the course suited him, he was just so incredibly consistent and had a lot of panache with the way that he attacked and rode, and he doesn't really have any controversy over his head.
Yeah.
In fact, he won the Triple Crown, but you look back at the moments where you think he probably could have even won more. Like, really just the greatest Italian Grand Tour rider of the last couple of decades. And Italian fans will be very sad to farewell him.
He always, obviously being around Astana and some of the stuff that has gone down in recent years, always managed to stay clear of that, but never took a backward step in defending the team and the team's integrity, that kind of thing. I don't want to seem like I'm putting the boot in here, but another thing...
But you're going to.
But I am. Your actual mate, Chris Froome, is one of many over the years to come out and question Vincenzo's intensity on the bike. He has been known to attack during mechanicals, hold on to team cars, that kind of thing. Does that... there's the category of... the doping category, which is a taint. But then there's this sort of thing. Does it do anything to tarnish a legacy, or is it just the sport?
Look, I think it's a, half column A, half column B, because some athletes aren't, they're racers, they do what they need to.
Yep.
They're not the cleanest characters in the world, but it doesn't make them dodgy in any way. It just is part of their character and part of what they do. And some people really respect them for that, and others... they're a bit annoying for it.
Yep.
But I don't think you can question his results and
his overall
and how he's earned it and his place. And I think we can certainly separate somebody's character and likability from their results sheet. I think you have to, because otherwise the greatest of all time comes down to a popularity contest on top of the results. So
dodgy's a big spectrum.
Yeah, I don't think Nibali's dodgy. I mean, I think... I don't necessarily think that everybody loves his character and how he goes about things. But in the same way, there are so many people that are massive fans.
Yep.
Massive fans. Like, it's globally in road cycling, he's one of the more popular athletes for people from all around the globe. Brisbane's own Belinda, I'm not sure if you know about Belinda. She does these hot mess Grand Tour maps. They're fantastic. We will definitely get that up on our socials because it's one of the best things that comes out of any Grand Tour. And she loved Nibali so much because she always got to buy a little shark prop.
I love that.
She's going to miss him.
Well,
Every
he
time
announced
she
it,
sees a shark, she'll not know what to do with it.
Yeah, she'll be lost at sea.
Yes.
So he announced it in Messina during Giro, which was a beautiful touch. Is sticking to it. He's gone. Congratulations to him. Extraordinary career. Now, again, not wanting to stir the pot here, but let's talk about Valverde. So 42 years of age, hell of a career, 130-odd pro wins, the Vuelta back in 2009. Lots and lots of wins either side of a 2-year ban. Of course, the infamous Operación Puerto. What a story that is.
Fuentes.
Yeah. So he was cleared, but then the Italian authorities got him, I believe, a couple of years after he was cleared. They found the samples and matched them to a
They did. So
fridge. Yeah.
At the Giro, the Italian authorities got a blood sample from him, which is part of the anti-doping. They're allowed to do that, and police powers. They then matched the DNA to a blood bag that was found around the Operation Puerto.
The infamous fridge of Uefimano Fuentes.
Yes, and so he ended up serving a 2-year doping ban by association with that. Now, he has maintained the whole time that innocent and that it was his doctor, but that he did nothing wrong, that he didn't take anything performance enhancing or use any methods. He served out his ban and he came straight back to Movistar, didn't talk about it again. Like almost like, this is ridiculous, I'll do what I have to do, let's move on. But he has said, I never tested positive. That they're the headlines.
There's a guilt by association thing. Movistar always really stuck by him as well.
They did. And there's a lot of people who are like, he didn't test positive, and he says, and we trust that. But Lance Armstrong said he didn't test positive, and he didn't. So I don't know that we can hang our hat on that. But if we separate that from his athletic career, tremendous career. Like,
do we separate
decades,
it? That's the question. Is there an asterisk, or do you separate it? Is there, because of the nature of the sport and its association with this over a long period of time, is it possible to separate?
I think that's a hard question, because I think that it's possible for someone to dope and then not dope. Yep. So maybe all of their results aren't tarnished. But at the same time, I don't think it's unusual for somebody to come to the conclusion that if he doped once, why wouldn't, he's the kind of character. The problematic thing, I think, with Valverde over some other riders is he's really likeable and people think he's awesome. Yeah. And so they do just brush over it. Where I've said it before, Lance Armstrong, he was a bit of an asshole, and that's why
he wasn't the most popular guy.
People shot him down so much.
Yeah.
So
the sport was waiting for him to tumble. Like, there was a real worldwide, this guy has to fall, but not the case with so many others. It's such an interesting discussion. Yeah. We'll have to do a special on it, and we'll have to make a doco about it.
Yes.
What a career, though.
Yeah.
And
he did have a tremendous career, and he was very exciting to watch racing. Yeah. So I think, again, the peloton changes every time you get these big retirements, quite separate to any argument about whether the results are valid. Yeah. When these athletes are no longer in there, it changes flavour. So it'll definitely change flavour with Valverde and Nibali gone.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the change of flavour, actually, on the Wheelhouse podcast. My name's Joel Spreadborough. Kate Bates is here as well. Congratulations to Nibali and Valverde. Quickly on Valverde. Alejandro. We've got to play that song. Alejandro. I saw lots of sporting displays from him as well. I brought that up about Nibali.
Yes.
Had to bring it up. Valverde, I saw a lot of backslapping, fist bumping, supportive physical action. So he's not one of those hunted. But you speak about the changing flavour of the peloton. Now, Dan Martin is a guy who's been out of the peloton for just over a year, I believe. Now, this is at the top of the show, I teased shit canning. So he's come out and said, you know what? Don't like it anymore. I'm off cycling. In his new memoir, he thinks it's boring. Boring, prescriptive, doesn't like seeing a few stars dominate every single GT. Can kind of see where he's coming from. But he hasn't necessarily stuck by these comments.
Well, I mean, can we first just backtrack a tiny bit, Joel? Because I think his memoir is called something like In Pursuit of a Panda.
Gee, what about the names coming out today?
Something like that. So,
1 hour.
Yeah, look, I think In Pursuit of a Panda is vastly more creative. Dan Martin, he's a great character. He was a really interesting racer, old school, comes from, old school racing family where he did animate races. And he wasn't the kind of rider who could win a race by just sitting and waiting and out physicaling. Now, that's not a word.
I like it, though.
But being, the biggest engine there, and he just had to play the waiting game. For him, he had to use strategy to win a bike race.
Yep.
And so for him, of course, he naturally has a different view than Pogacar or Ganna, for example, who is going to be able to win some races simply because he's bigger and better than anybody else. Mm-hmm. I think that's the first place to start with all of this, that his style of riding leads him to needing to be, a very in-the-moment reactive rider.
Yep.
He backtracked because he said he was taken out of context, which always makes me laugh. I'm like, it's your book.
It's your memoir.
It's your book, your memoir. It's been edited. You've read it many times.
Yeah.
So not sure about that.
And your publisher is the one sending these angles out to the media to work with. So.
Exactly. But I think that what he was perhaps trying to say is that it's changed. It's not better, it's not worse, but that it has changed. On that point, I absolutely agree. And there's, debates ad nauseum about race radios and whether they change the flavour of the race. And to a degree, I think they do, because you do have a team director telling them what to do, and you get less of the in-the-moment decision-making from the athletes that could make them or break them. World Championships is a perfect example of that. Like Remco, he didn't have anybody in his ear telling him what to do. That was just like race panache.
Even if he did, though, let's be honest.
Well, you take the radio out. Sorry, I didn't hear you. But I think that from that angle, you can understand where he comes from. But he clearly didn't mean it to be a shit can.
On the entire sport. But he spoke a lot about young riders. I actually didn't mind what he had to say. He used a few examples from his own career. The word machine comes up. The word robot comes up. Diet, weight expectations, poor messaging around that kind of thing. There's one example, again, I think your mate Froome's involved, where he's talking about during a GT, looking forward to, I can't wait to the end so I can have a burger and relax. His teammates are going, I can't wait to the end so I can have a salad. And even then, I won't have any of this because it's got this in it. And it'll do. People basically fat shaming, that sort of thing. He's speaking about what kind of message that sends to young aspiring riders. I think that's an important message in our society in general, not just in sport.
We don't want to shit can his book. I think there's a lot of really good things in there. And I think it might be frustrating for him where he feels like he's put together all of this really important messaging from his side, and this is what hits the media. But
that's the thing.
That's how media works.
It is exactly right. And it's like that important messaging is buried beneath I hate the sport and all that sort of stuff.
That is exactly right.
Pump the brakes on the Wheelhouse podcast. So I look forward to reading it. When's your memoir coming out, by the way?
Oh, yeah, TBC.
TBC. Can you just promise me we'll announce it on this show?
Sure.
Okay, good. All right.
Geez, that kind of, all right.
I mentioned I went to a Bucks party last weekend and still I'm not really here.
Stag night, yes.
Stag night. Now, we didn't play any silly jokes, okay? Just caught up. It was okay. It was fun. Benoit Cosnefroy. Now,
great name.
How did I go on the pronounce? Well. Cosnefroy, okay. A bit of a stunt. A fake arm cast goes viral on his Bucks party. Now, I guess it's a prank gone wrong. If you're listening on, there's an image of him with his mates and he's got his arm in a cast. So, what's he done? He's broken his arm. Okay, not good. The trick here, when you're posting a fake injury and you're being jovial about it, be careful if you're French cycling royalty and you have 52,000 Instagram followers. That's all I'll say.
Yes, he is an absolute darling of the French sports media, not least because he's got such a lovely name.
Yeah.
Benoit Cosnefroy. Yes, look, the caption on the photo of him with his arm in a cast says, thanks anyway, boys. So they made out like there'd been an accident. There was no context given, just that he had a broken arm.
Yeah.
It was a joke for his bride-to-be Margot who would see this and freak out.
Poor her, by the way. Like, guys,
yeah,
come on.
I mean, like the general rule, I think, for bucks parties, stag nights is like, don't care what you get up to, but make sure your face and your limbs are in one piece at the end, you know? So clear violation of said rules here. But it was picked up very quickly by the newspapers who were now freaked out, like, what has he done? What's happened?
Yep.
Oops.
Big whoops.
Big whoops.
I'm wondering about the planning for that Bucks weekend. It's like, all right, so, okay, you bring the beers, you bring the ice. Who's bringing the plaster cast?
I know. No.
You got that? Great.
It's quite funny, though. Like, I think it's quite funny.
Yeah, look, no harm done.
Harmless.
No harm done.
Exactly.
I do feel for his fiancée, though.
And also funny, I think, to the media who got pranked because, like, fact check. Like, let's not just take an Instagram story and turn that into fact. If you can't reach the people and confirm it, maybe don't run it.
I wonder if anyone went with the season in doubt, career in doubt headline.
No
just
doubt.
To
I mean,
clickbait it.
my French is non-existent, so I can't really, thumb through them and find those headlines. But I reckon totally with the, the hoo-ha that was created and generated around one photo.
It was a hoo-ha. It was an absolute hoo-ha.
Yes.
Now, let's stay in Europe because the Giro course has been released and you're happy because heaps of TTs.
Oh,
you love a good TT.
And I love the Giro. 106th edition, 2022, we saw about 23K worth of individual time trials. 70 kilometres.
70
70 kilometres of individual time trials, starting on day one with a prologue opening time trial of sorts that also has some bike path thrown. It's so Italian. Bike path thrown in there. It's emerged, I think, as course design. This one has got to be for Remco Evenepoel. He's our incumbent world champion.
Yeah.
He won. He's just such an incredible athlete. He won the Vuelta just before he won the World Championships.
And a Wheelhouse fan, of course.
And he's a listener. G'day, Remco.
Hi, Remco.
Hope you're well. Once again, really nice suit at the Flanders Awards the other night.
Yes.
Remco's come out and said, not confirmed if I'll ride the Giro and the Tour, but could. But can I say that Italy has done a stonking job. I nearly came up with another word there. We'll go with stonking.
I love stonking.
Of trying to woo him to Italy.
Should they be doing this?
Well, why not? It's their race.
Do you like that, though? Organisers designing a course to suit... We were just talking about Dan Martin, the idea of a few riders. It's like tennis, a couple of players dominating. This just propels that. Is it good?
Well, I think so, because they could also design it for Pogacar.
Yep.
To woo him away from the Tour. He's already won that. Maybe he'd like to come to Italy, but, because I think they've also had Fillipo Ganna in mind here because with the opening TT as well. I might add the secondary TT is less Ganna-like because it is directly up a giant hill. There's flat and then giant hill. Yep. And a bike change will be required on that one because that's certainly more a Remco kind of time trial. Yep. But Ganna could win the opening time trial, take the pink. Like, it's cool. It's good PR. It does wonders for them to have a guy who has literally just done what Ganna has done coming in. And especially if then on the day, someone like a Foss or something comes out and just steals it from them. Exactly. That's a good result. Good. But interestingly, they're going over some spectacular climbs this year. Like, it's a really beautiful route. However, a lot of the climbs are known, even in June, to still have quite a lot of snow on them. Snow bikes. And so in May, it's quite foreseeable that they may be unrideable. You know what? Doco watch. So recently on the Wheelhouse podcast, there was an episode about comebacks. Yes. Now, one of your entries, of all great entries, one of yours was a blizzard controversy where riders... Charlie Gall, yes. Taking shelter in farmhouses and the like. And Bahamontes in his pyjamas in the farmhouse. Yeah. We could have another one of those. Could that happen? Oh, look, potentially. I mean, I think it is really interesting. And if nothing else, a lot of these tours, as with a lot of cycling things, they're tourism advertisements. Yeah. Like, they're just these beautiful, iconic imagery. Yeah. And I tell you, every image I've seen of the cyclists going through these mountains of snow, it's quite beautiful. But for the viewers, potential red flag problem is often when they are in these high mountains and there is a lot of snow, it means we don't really get pictures. So I hope that's not the case.
You know who rides okay in adverse weather? Glutes O'Connor.
So
Glutesy. I think he will be licking his lips at the prospect of blizzard-like
maybe.
conditions.
I mean, I don't know that he'll be doing the Giro either, but this might get him over the edge.
Okay.
It's hard to do the Giro and then back up to the Tour.
Yeah, you'll be right.
Yeah.
Said with absolutely no experience
send
whatsoever.
Cosnefroy to do the Tour.
Yeah.
Put that on him.
With a cast.
Yeah. Send
okay.
BOC and his glute over to the Giro.
Fair enough. On the Wheelhouse podcast now, this is an important topic. I want to get very serious. I'm just going to wipe the flyer over and put my serious face on. So I want to add fuel to the fire. It's a big discussion in sport right now, and it's at the front of the pack in cycling as well. It's called sport washing or greenwashing. Now, basically the concept of a brand or a country, not just brands, but countries hiding dirty deeds through sponsoring sporting events. So basically relying on the wholesome athletes to divert and apply some bleach to their product. We've seen it in so many sports this week, or last week rather, at the Track Worlds. The British team came out with a very familiar shell logo, literally a shell.
They did, yes. So they announced that Shell would be coming on board as a long-term partner for British cycling.
8 years.
Yeah, so a significant investment. It was not well received, I think is probably the best way to couch it. Greenwashing pure and simple is what the headline said. But it's an interesting debate because I understand that there's a lot of concerns around anything in that industry, their practices, their contribution to global warming. But in the announcement, Shell and British Cycling said, we're both companies and industries that have an issue and need to work toward net zero. We're going to go on that journey together. We haven't really deep dived here into the sort of climate change effect in a negative way that cycling has, because you think a bike, that's really positive.
Yes.
But all of the vehicles that follow the tours around and etc., cycling doesn't have a zero carbon footprint at all as a sport. They've got some work to do.
Well, this plays into the whole thing because Britain especially, Darren Henry, the commercial director, came out about a year ago making a massive commitment to a greener future.
Yes, but then Shell have said that they're committed to net zero as well. So, yes, they're a fossil fuel company, and yes, they have a checkered past, but does that mean that you can't take their money and go on a journey with them to do that? I mean, and make them more publicly responsible, that's the word I'm looking for their commitments to the net zero. I'd be very curious to hear what people think about this. So, let us know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, you can jump onto our Facebook and do that. Because
we're on Facebook now, by the way. Bing, bing, bing.
Yes.
That happened
FYI,
recently. Yeah.
I know. I need to reacquaint myself with Facebook, I might add. But we've seen this across different sports. So there was another example in Australia this week with our national sport, especially for women's sport with netball, Joel.
Yep.
They were sponsored by Hancock Prospecting, which is, also a mining company. And some of the players have said no.
Well, there's actually an interesting story here. So Hancock Prospecting, for those not aware, is a massive, massive, massive mining company, a dynasty company as well. The current boss is Gina Reinhardt. Now, her father was a guy by the name of Lang Hancock. In the 80s, he made some extremely controversial comments around the sterilisation of First Nations female women, okay? Gina has never got in front of those comments and said anything to separate herself or to clarify, however you'd clarify that, whatever. Now, there's one particular diamond, an Australian netball player by the name of Donald Wellham, who has made a conscientious objection to wearing the logo because of this, which I think is more than fair enough. It adds up to the role of the athletes in this as well. So I think a few former British cyclists have come out and said Don't blame the athletes for this. They're just wearing the gear. They got to wear the gear. What other option have they got if they're not riding for GBR? Who are they riding for at that level? Basically, it's a tough one for them. Having said that, at the same time, their contracts, they're allowed to make fair comment around stuff. Having said that, they're instructed against making defamatory remarks. This could make some big ethical collisions for Great Britain cycling and cycling in general, because let me just say, the world's 9th largest petroleum producer pairing up with them and saying we want to make a deal to accelerate British cycling's path to net zero. As you say, there's hope, but it's a little bit of a confusing one.
It is tough on the athletes. I do think that they don't have the rights that they should have in sharing and voicing their opinion, because they are wearing, literally in their highest moments throughout the sport, wearing a logo on their chest and representing something that they may absolutely not agree with, but they don't have a choice.
Yep.
They absolutely do not have a choice. These are the decisions of the commercial directors in these companies in British cycling, and they're pushing that onto the athletes. I think that it could have been better handled, where the athletes were consulted beforehand, and where they did come out with a statement saying our athletes believe X, Y, Z. You know, they don't think that fossil fuels are the way forward. They're very committed to climate change, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, they acknowledge that Shell is on a path with British cycling to head toward net zero. Like, I do think that there's an in-between where the athletes' views can get represented and it be a positive thing. And I think that this has just been handled exceptionally badly, because I also think the answer is not necessarily to say no to the money. Because if you say no to the money all the time, then you also don't get this counter view. The athletes can put forward, they're very powerful in the community. They can put forward a very big and positive counter view and make Shell more accountable.
And that can be made to work for the sponsorship. We've seen it.
There's also, I think, a difference when Shell is saying we're committed to working with Great Britain for net zero versus a company, and there's been a lot in the past, and Ineos is a big one on this front. Orica, when they were working with what is now Bike Exchange, and they've, you know, had a pretty substandard record with the management of petrochemicals. Nothing ever got said. Nothing at all. No athletes, nothing. Yep. Ineos, nothing. They haven't released a statement saying, you know, because they've got a lot of protests around fracking, that saying we're committed to something and we're going on a journey with this team.
Yep.
That's different. They are just plain greenwashing by sponsoring a team.
Oh, there's different levels
and
of
so
it.
I think that it is different. So while I think Shell have a lot of work to do, they've at least said that they're going to, versus these other companies that just sign up to, you know, make themselves look good in the community, but they're not even pretending to want to be better.
And the reality for a lot of these sports, I'll use the netball example here, is that they need the money. Netball, I think, posted a $7 million loss in the most recent reporting period for the financial year.
I mean, so if we use GB, like the athletes, they do have an opportunity to say, or they could if it's handled right, their view on it, and then you have both views out. When it's someone like an Ineos, you don't have both views out.
Yeah,
you don't. It's not even a discussion.
There's a way to make it work, as you say. Cricket Australia does it well. They've got an energy partnership, but they use players who are very conscientious and do object to it to sort of showcase that they actually live quite a sustainable life and they're an example. Blah blah blah. You can be clever about it. There's always going to be a whiff. There's different levels about it. FIFA World Cup is an event coming up that has been covered in controversy due to alleged human rights abuses in Qatar. You've got Live Golf, which is paid for by Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. You've got gambling and anti-gambling messages in the AFL as well.
Oh, don't even talk to me about gambling. I reckon that's the one thing that you can't give me a positive spin on.
No.
For that. Joel, I know that we've had a very big show, but before we end, I want to tell you that there's some very good news on your impending athletic career.
Lovely.
This week there's been quite a lot in the news about the power of sleep on performance, right? So we know that we've heard about all the marginal gains. We've heard about, all sorts of things around how you can increase your performance. But they're saying, Joel, that sleep, that's the thing.
Are you saying there's hope for me yet?
I'm saying, that's exactly what I'm saying. I am saying there is hope for you yet, because it is not necessarily about what you're doing around that. I'm talking about just getting your sleep hygiene right. And we did put a photo up on the studio monitor for you of Monsieur Alaphilippe.
My boy Juju.
In bed with his bike. Now, the context of this photo is that Latex Co. are a sponsor of Quickstep, Alpha Vinyl, however many sponsors they have now, and they're pillows. So they do beautiful pillows for them. But because I thought, Joel, let's bring this to the everyday athlete, right? Yeah. It's not just good sleep, doesn't cost you anything, and it's not just accessible to the likes of Alaphilippe. So I got in touch with the general manager at Oz Cycling of High Performance, Jesse Korf. He's got a PhD in this sort of thing. I'll have to find out the exact title of the PhD, which has yet to be fully published. But pretty much he's a rocket scientist on this sort of thing. And so he reckons that the first thing is that sleep is a really standard metric that you can measure and compare and correlate with good performance, bad performance. That all of the athletes now, it's a very big focus for it. He's said that you can't really necessarily constitute good sleepers and bad sleepers just naturally, but it's got a lot to do with sleep hygiene, Joel. So his tips for you is to turn off the blue light. I think we've heard a lot about that, and, sleep mode on your phone or whatever, not expose yourself to light. But a big one that the athletes are using is no food or exercise or alcohol within 2 to 3 hours of going to bed.
Okay.
Nothing at all.
Okay.
Because that's become a really big indicator of poor sleep.
So no food, no alcohol. What was the third thing you said?
Yes. So keep that to a minimum. And the other thing was exercise, but not at the back end of the day. So exercising in the morning, and when you wake up, exposing yourself to natural light to get your body firing up. So they're simple things, Joel, but you see, if you follow all of these are your marginal gains. So that maybe instead of seeing Monsieur Alaphilippe in bed with his bike,
polka dot bike,
you might be the new poster boy for cycling.
For specialised.
What do you think? I'm pitching.
For me to replace Alaphilippe.
Yes.
I'll
just follow the little sleep rules.
Do you think it's becoming more prominent? It's becoming more respected as an issue with big teams like Ineos and getting behind it. It makes a difference, doesn't it?
I think they're little tips that are accessible to anybody. So it's great for the amateur athletes, because it's really tough when research comes out and you're like, well, cool, but, great to know that Ganna's €33,000 bike will help me, but that's not accessible. But they are small things, but it's just about consistency and letting your body recover and, prepping it as well as it can be for the next day.
I wish I would have known this before the Bucks weekend that I went on, and I could have said, sorry guys, can't come, I need to sleep all weekend. I would have way preferred that.
No, you actually have to get up in between the sleeps as well. It's just about making it good quality, Joel.
I want to talk more about this. It's interesting how these low impact methodologies can make such a difference of becoming slightly more
I can't promise it any more than I can promise Lynn Munro, but let's see if we can get Jesse on to talk us through the intricacies of it, because I think the point is it's not just for high performance athletes. It's if you want to be a better club racer, if you want to just feel better and perform better at your spin class.
Yeah.
it's really...
It's for everyone, of course
everyone.
It is. Yeah.
So let's see if we can get some tips from the experts.
Exciting. Exciting. I love it, Kate Bates. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you for being on your own show.
What a great... you said at the top, you could think that this is the end of the season and not much is happening, but actually...
Bit to do.
Yeah, we've got to wind ourselves up here.
Oh, we're just getting started at the Wheelhouse podcast. You might just see the flyers. We are also on Facebook now. You can just literally search for the Wheelhouse.
Yes.
You can watch the show there as well. You can... Merxie's getting involved, doing some posts. He's incredible.
Genius. What would we do without him? And his Facebook instigation. You, Joel, deserve some credit for that too. But jump on and follow us and share.
Yes. Like, share, subscribe to the Wheelhouse podcast, Instagram, Facebook. YouTube, Spotify, Listener. It's everywhere. It's coming at you. It's easily digestible. It's mostly factual, and it likes to get plenty of sleep. We'll see you again next time. The Wheelhouse is produced by River City Studios for Listener. Executive produced by Luke Mears and the mysterious Merksy. It's written and hosted by Kate Bates and me, Joel Spreadborough.